Good afternoon and welcome to the June meeting for the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority. Unfortunately, our General Counsel, Mike Cassidy, is unable to be with us today. We do have Elaine Barber via Zoom. Rita Kelly is here and we are awaiting the anytime arrival of Ralph.
Well, he's on his way, so.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes, which I hope everyone has had a chance to review. And I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes for the monthly meeting of the ICA on May 24th, 2023.
Move.
Second. All those, any comments? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Unfortunately, I must repeat what I mentioned last month. We are still awaiting word on the meeting for the 2021 audit, which we have again been told will be presented before the end of June, which is now physically impossible given that we only have 2 days of June remaining. So we shall wait and see.
I do have an update.
Okay. Last night, City Council had another of its marathon sessions, lasting 4 hours and 55 minutes. And they were discussing the amendments to the mayor's proposed allocations for the ARPA funds. In my opinion, most of the conversation related to minor adjustments and intent and the interest of council to remain involved in the actual structuring of the programs. Most notable in the changes were redirecting the spray park funds to a redo of the South Side pool. Additionally, they funded $1 million for a workplace development and internship program in Harrisburg, $1 million to fund bridge housing for those experiencing temporary homelessness, $500,000 for community connection hubs. I believe most of those will probably be located in libraries or accessible places, perhaps even the municipal center. $250,000 for organizations that provide senior citizens programming, and $150,000 for Healthy Corners pilot project, which will explore putting fresh vegetables in corner stores and how that's possible, how long they can keep them fresh and how many they will sell. So these were just their amendments. They were busy trying to keep track of how much money they were adding, subtracting. So only sometime later this week will we know whether or not it actually all fits or whether they'll have to adjust next week when they're going to have another marathon session. Where they will actually pass these amendments and pass the entirety of on the actual ARPA funding allocations. And then unfortunately at the very end, they had like 6 approvals and these poor people had to wait around 4 hours and 43 minutes, but all went well. So that's all I have. And I'd like to now turn the floor over to Harrisburg's Director of Finance, Rita Kelly, who probably was there.
No, I was in Newark, New Jersey, picking my daughter up from her trip to Italy.
Lucky you. Yeah. So I turn it over to you for a brief update on the City of Harrisburg's FY23 fiscal status.
Well, I'll begin with the audit. The MD&A is being finalized. Management discussion and analysis will be finalized and delivered probably during the 4th of July week, probably Monday the 3rd. And then I'm waiting to speak with Alex about getting the committee meeting scheduled because we have all the pieces done. We're just waiting for final approval from the auditor. Once they have a chance to read the MD&A, that's the last final piece of the audit. So,
and just so I can add, so that everyone knows, we will again meet with them. So I've spoken with Alex. As soon as he gets this, he will send out dates for consideration at the same time he sends out dates to his audit committee. So as soon as we get that, we'll send it around to see when.
and he'll send the audit with it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, the administration and myself apologizes for delays. We've had enormous success with our Munis implementation, but it's held up a lot of other projects that are, you know, painstakingly important. So, but it's the first time in more than 30 years that we've had a new general ledger software. And frankly, it takes a village to rebuild the financial structure and emancipate the ability to have an efficient general ledger system that is easily usable by all members. And that includes the opportunity for department directors to actually enter their own budgets as long as they provide appropriate justification. Of course, it'll have to be reviewed by both the business administrator for review, the mayor for review, and then she'll submit her budget the Tuesday before Thanksgiving as required statutorily. And then city council will most likely adopt the budget somewhere mid-December. So,
and just so you know, Steve did a great job last month telling us all about the implementation and the stages. And I think Jeffrey did a great job capturing that in the minutes. And then Brian did a great job, of course.
Well, and then just this month, we've added 2 modules. We've added the fixed asset map module, which will include depreciation of all fixed assets. We do have an inventory of all fixed assets because of the audit, it's required. But what we don't have a terrific inventory of everything is those items under the $5,000. So each department has an inventory of their items, but again, we as a department, the finance want to go in and do a material sampling of the data from all those inventories, and then we're going to upload them and add them to the Munis system. So it will complement the fixed assets by being sort of non-fixed assets. So those would be motor parts for cars and batteries and things like that. But they're less than $5,000, but they still must be tracked and appreciated. And also we're linking those to to work orders, so that when an work order is issued for a police vehicle that needs 4 new tires, when the VMC, the vehicle maintenance individual, is ready to place those tires and take them off the inventory, then there'll automatically be an ad in the system to add those 4 new tires for that particular type of vehicle. So it's painstaking to go through all these intricacies. It's hard for my team because we have to actually be trained. And so, but the ultimate benefit will be transparency, better budgeting. And just yesterday, I've agreed to purchase the budget book piece of Munis, which will allow us to have a 2024 budget that looks a lot like the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. It won't be perfect because we won't be there yet, but it will have photos, it will have graphs, it will have all the data that you need, it'll have personnel information in excruciating detail. So adding those 2 modules alone and we have multiple other modules being added for mercantile tax, for personnel and human resources. So these are all moving in the same time at the same motion. But guess what? It pulls Brian McCutcheon off every time because there's pieces he has to add. And so I'll take responsibility for the delinquency of the report because I've had to personally pull him off to manage pieces of this Munis because he has the best understanding of both Munis and the accounting system. And so we're trying to make progress, and we're moving from 1950. Remember that HR system is 1972. It's Fortran, and it's still being used. So we're going from 1950 to 2023, and my goal is to take us to 2050 within 2 years. So if you can just be patient with us and allow us to bring these modules and these pieces into place so that we do have proper accounting for fixed assets and inventories and so forth. So that's probably more than you wanted to know, but at least it kind of dovetails what Steve told you, I'm sure, because he's the one leading the charge along with Brian. So there's the 2 of them doing the heavy lift. They entered, by the way, all 3 years of budgets are already entered. So when council or any member of a department pulls up their budget, they're going to have those 3 years already listed in. Well, they had to take the time to stop and do that. Neither one of them worked 40 hours a week. You know, they're working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week, no lie. Brian's there every weekend. He's there till 10 o'clock every night. So it's not like he's not trying. Mm-hmm. So it's just been a situation where we've had to, you know, pull him off for multiple, because he's got the senior experience for 14 years and I don't. I'm only there a year and a half, you know, so.
I bet you it feels longer.
And then we also have a reallocation coming up this Tuesday. Yep. We're adding some parks positions because for the first time in many years, we have 140, almost 150 summer help to run the swimming pools, the parks, Zumba class, you name it. And it's quite remarkable, but it did add a chunk of change to our budget that we hadn't exactly planned on. But the mayor feels, and so does the police chief, because the money's coming from police, is that when we can keep everyone busy and active and you know, add value to our parks and our systems, that it's a better city. So it's an investment, so to speak, but one that wasn't as well planned as we would have liked, because we never expected to we've never had 150 kids show up and say, I want a summer job. But we're paying a little bit better wage. We're paying $15, $16, $17 an hour. And you all know what the minimum wage is. It's way above that. So thank goodness. And you can give the mayor credit for her leadership with that. And then we're adding some summer crossing guard, school year crossing guard students who will crossing guards who will start in August. So we're adding those and helping the school district out. The school district's going to pay 60%. We're going to pay 40%, but that's also added in the reallocation for this Tuesday. And then finally, you may be familiar with the PCCD gun violence investigation grant, where we're adding a program manager and an assistant to the program manager. That grant was approved and executed by City Council. So they're all kind of win-wins, but it did take, and no one really, we didn't take any hits to the fund balance, which is good news. So it's mostly just money kind of being moved around from vacancies and from other opportunities. So I think you'll be pleased with that, assuming council approves that. Now this will go to the committee, the finance committee on Tuesday, but of course she'll move it to the legislative meeting, which is the fall. No,
it's immediately after there.
Oh, the same day. Yes, that's right. For immediately after. So that's kind of a win-win for us too. And then going to Brian's report to DCED, to Madger Clay and our colleague Ms. Hutzel. The ending cash balance as of 6/14. Well, this would be report for the month of May. Is $23,639,000. So even after paying AMBEC, we're still sitting in a reasonably good fiscal position. I will say Mr. McCutcheon did an excellent job estimating what it would be, because he came in at, I think in April with an estimate of like 22.5. So he did a pretty good job with that. Revenues are on pace at 42% at the end of May, and expenditures at almost 42%, 41.5. So I think overall the general fund is looking good. We're seeing positive revenues for the neighborhood services fund for trash collection. We did implement again fees and fines for people who don't pay them on time. So that seems to be an impetus to get them paid. And we also hired an attorney. We've had that position for a number of years. In fact, the same woman returned from a position prior, and she's doing an excellent job chasing after the arrears. And she actually has an assistant who's helping her with liens. So that money is certainly looking healthy. I do not have the report on the exact arrears. I had asked for it, but in the midst of today and my chaos, I wasn't able to pick it up, but I will share it with you and send it out on Monday. Okay, so but the good news is the revenues are looking healthy, and earned income tax, it's off the charts. It's just pouring.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. But you know, interestingly enough, the reason why my information was slightly different than the controller's information is because I attend the Dauphin County Tax Collection Committee. And the night before I was to submit that report, they're reporting that our revenues are, you know, like almost double digits. Well, of course, I think that's a little high because he's talking about the whole county, but guess what? We're the largest measure in Dauphin County, you know, besides your Central Dauphin School District, of course, and some of the other school districts. So we really are pacing it, you know, well above 3%, let's put it that way. So that's why my numbers were not in contradiction of the controller, because my numbers are just more recent, right? Because I was at the meeting the night before that I submitted that. So, but that's the good news, that that's pacing well. Real estate's pacing about where it would be this time of year. We're not above them, we're not behind, we're just like dead set in the middle, 50%. And well, higher than that because everybody pays during the discount period, but about 50% of where we would expect to be. And then the other revenues, nothing as an outlier that's really behind for general fund anyway. And you know, our biggest challenge is keeping costs down. You know, and that summer help issue, you know, makes it a kind of a win-win, but also a concern. I've got to keep the cost under control. And we all know that, and we're working towards that goal. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Go ahead.
Marie, I just have one question regarding upcoming mid-year report that you normally do. Can you talk through the next steps and timing as to when that's going to be completed?
Yeah, that's usually submitted at the first meeting, June 20. I'm sorry, August 22nd. It's usually submitted to the council for review and then voted on for approval the following legislative meeting. I'm not sure if 22 is the legislative or the work session, so, but it's going to be submitted on the 22nd. We're using the same exact format as we did last year, which is more of a overview and less of a detailed one, but council liked it and they were in favor of what we presented. So, and you'll have a bird's eye view of that before they do. We'll be able to submit that to you, you know, so. And we're using the basis of that report to build the ICA report, which is due a week later. So, and I do have an auditor too that was just hired. So now we're at full complement. The only thing I'm missing is my assistant to the grant writer. And we're interviewing for that, but we're at full complement now. So it should put Brian in a much healthier position now that because he was trying to run the accounting office with 2 people, himself and 1 other. You know, we've had that vacancy for the auditor too for over a year, which means that every check run, only those 2 could manage it. You know, other than the financial analyst who helps with whatever journal entries are needed, but she also helps with the budget, she helps with procurement, she helps with the munis training. So she's a little limited how much she can help Brian. But the goal is that we'll have the mid-year report to them on August 22nd, but you guys will have a view of it prior to that.
And sorry, the preparation for that. What's the preparation calendar for that? When do you start working on it?
No, we just had a staff meeting not more than an hour ago. And I told everyone that we need to start rolling on that. Now, at the same time, we're training for the budget entries with the department. So I'm trying to divide and conquer and figure out, Tim Brooks is responsible for both, but I'm trying to give him the fiscal analyst. I'm trying to give him my special assistant, and I'm trying to give him myself. So we should be geared up to get the budget entries done this August, which is terrific because last year we were doing them in November. And then we should have that mid-year report right online with the due date. You know, so it's not complicated. It probably takes Tim a day and a half to pull the numbers, and then Tracy Fountain, who's our new financial analyst, she'll be assisting him with that. And she assisted us a little bit with some of the ICA work earlier this year, but she was brand new. She came over from the Auditor General. She's a CPA. So that's great that I have a CPA on board too, who's really helping with some audit procedures for inventories and things like that. And credit card procedures, we're also struggling with trying to get procedures in because we don't have a P card. So individual departments don't have a credit card. So that means we have 1 credit card for the entire city. And it's just very difficult to try to manage it. But we're trying to negotiate with some of our other elected officials who are in the finance field to see if we can maybe move towards the P cards. I know Pliget offers one. I'm sure Citizens does, and they're our bank. And so we're just, yeah, but right now it's been a struggle to try to manage using one credit card for the entire city. But we've set up some policies and procedures. Charlie's been great at reviewing them and approving them. And now we just need Neil to give us the final blessing to implement them. And that'll keep better controls too, because what we're after is internal controls. So there's no mishandling of any money accidentally or on purpose. So we want to really tighten up the internal controls. And I have had a meeting with Boyer and Ritter, and I speak to Wilson quite often, maybe weekly. And starting in July, I'm going to have regular meetings with him for the 22 audit. Now he's really hopeful that all the information he needs mid-year is available for him. So he's ready to dive into that 22 audit, and so am I. So, great. So this won't happen again, but it's just it's one of those outliers where you just have a perfect storm of things, and only one human being that kind of you know, has the 14-year history to guide us, and then Mr. Bortner having the IT knowledge, you know, because that's a special field to write code and things like that. And his team writes code. I don't write code, but I probably could. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer.
Any other questions? I did remember today that we haven't gotten the controller's report. So you wouldn't mind.
We have the April report.
Yeah, but they usually are right on the 15th or the 16th.
I was just asking Brian today. I'm like, did I see one from Michael Thomas for May? And he's like, no.
The last month we were
a little late.
It was like the day after we had. So it was pretty close.
Which is unusual for them because they're so far ahead of us usually, because they don't have as many moving parts.
Right. I will.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just let me know too, because I'd like to.
We'll copy you on it.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
Well, you'd get it anyway,
No,
because you'd get it through Jeffrey's dissemination. Elaine, did you have any questions?
We do owe a report to Ms. Hutzel because the mid-year report's due to.
No, sorry.
All right, thank you.
All right.
It's all good.
So that we'll be working on as well immediately. The mid-year report for the Commonwealth for DCD. So that's in the works. And then the ARPA report is scheduled also for July 31st. So I'll be working on those two reports. And we usually work hand in hand. She gives me information, I give her information. We're able to get all the information in one place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Big help.
I don't know what I'd do without her help, but we try to work as a team.
I think it's the other way around.
And City Council did approve the continued funding for your consultant for the ARPA.
Yes, thank goodness. And they approved the engineer. Although on the engineer front, we have a new engineer starting in July.
Oh, great.
I don't know the exact date.
Last night.
I know I signed off on the payroll action form, but I don't recall the date, but it's sometime in July.
Staff engineer.
Staff engineer.
And then Dawood would still continue because
of course, yes,
there'll be things that they'll need plus.
Yes, I mean, Wayne was our engineer, but he had 5 or 6 engineering firms working on bridges and highways and buildings and, you know, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, we have $13 million, which we did get an extension on. Through not only through December 23, but through December 24.
Excellent.
So, and we've made enormous progress on the parks. The mayor can be proud that she can say she's going to have brand new playgrounds in 5 of our parks, you know, before July 15th. You know, now of course the Jackson Lick pool is a little different story. That's going to take a little more time, but that's also on the agenda for the 13 million.
Good, great. Yeah, anything?
The only question I would have is parking. We always ask about how things are going with parking revenue. I don't know if you have any sense.
Well, if you're talking about the portion coming from the Commonwealth,
that's fine.
We don't anticipate any because they're still paying their debt. So it would be a rare occasion at the end of this year that we would get anything, but in terms of the parking tax revenue, is doing very nicely. You know,
Okay,
is pacing nicely. We'll give you more specifics when we do the ICA report, but it's pacing very nicely. Having those few state employees back, albeit the management ones, has really helped because it's brought more robust activity to our restaurants, certainly to our parking. I can't park on Forester Street anymore like I could because it's full. And so yeah, we're hopeful that that helps the Commonwealth too in paying down the PEDFA debt. But and we're hoping that, you know, as Mr. Shapiro or Governor Shapiro feels that he'd like to bring anybody else back, would be happy to see that happen. But yeah, I think that the parking tax revenue is pacing nicely.
Okay. Well, thank you, Marita. Jeffrey, over to you.
Okay, thank you for that update, Marina. Thank you, Chair. We're just going to cover the paid bills report for the authority. We have 2, 4, 6, 7 invoices that you were notified we paid this month, and we have a cash balance in our FNB checking account of $134,906.04. We've earned $13.68 in year-to-date in interest, and we are good to go. If anybody has any questions about any of those invoices, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that is all I have today for my report.
Is there any other new business from any of the board members? If not, Jeffrey, I will turn it over to you for public comment.
Okay, we have some citizens in the audience today who maybe have some questions for us on some issues.
Well, I mean, the concerns we have made.
Okay, just for the people watching.
Eric Epstein, Rock Capital.
Thank you.
I mean, the concerns we have continue to be the neighborhood fund, OPEB, and some other issues, but just an observation, and this is stylistic. We run a lot of businesses, some very successfully. I was always taught, if you're on time, you're late. And one of the trends that I've noticed with this agency in the city of Harrisburg is a tolerance for late filings. I don't have that. And I live in a world where if I do file late, there's a penalty and it's substantial. So I guess it's not an admonition as much as just a caution that if some things due at a certain time, something's supposed to begin at a certain time, it should, because then you develop a culture of saying it's okay. I know the past wasn't great. You know, I get that the financial protocols were from the 50s. I get the same thing at the Dauphin County Prison. Same thing every meeting from the 50s. I remember when the incinerator was built in 74, they complained, and that was state of the art. If you look at your water and sewage, it's the same complaint. So at some point, I don't know when that culture changes, and I think it's probably, you know, just the culture we live in now, where it's okay to take a phone call during a meeting or text. I've been in interrogatories before where people just left. So for me, as an old school guy, you start on time if there's a timeline, you get it, unless there's an exception. And I think that develops a culture. And the reason I'm bringing this is my largest unsuccessful project throughout my life has been the transference of institutional memory. If you listen to the dichotomy of the testimony of these proceedings, a lot of the problems comes with a job not being filled, a new person, and it's happened with us, we're at the school district, or being too dependent on one person. What happens if Matt goes over? So these are all reflections of where we're at as a society. I don't think really any different than any other corporation or municipality. I'm just saying, for me, I just couldn't operate like that. And I fire people for being late. I don't have a problem with it. I'll end with this. When I was a professor at Penn State and people would come late, I made them know on certain terms that my time is valuable. The other people's time in the room is valuable. And after a month, everybody got to class ahead of time. So again, these are just, you know, personal preferences. But, you know, for somebody who's been on where you're at on the other side, I like to get the meeting started, made an effort to get here. We're doing with the parking meter. So not a substantive criticism, but just a stylistic observation.
Thank you for your observation. Brian, do you have anything you'd like to share with us today? And if you could just introduce yourself.
My name is Brian, and I'm with Eric over Rockford Capital, Civil War reenactor. Excellent. You know what, I think in general, things look good. I looked at the AMVAC repayment, that was going to pay off. I guess the big thing is the tax revenue projections. Steve, I would say very optimistic. Very optimistic. Was there a change recently that
we heard things were good? We're on track, is what we heard today.
Well, but I mean, but even like real estate, 4 years out, parking 4 years, like so we think everything 4 years out is the same.
That was the projections that we were given. We will get new projections in August. We'll see how they are then.
Okay. And then I guess the only other thing is some of the specific budgeting. I heard the explanation for the parks. Is there a reason why you put that over the sewage specifically? Because obviously you're spending money on parks, a different increase in the budget. Is there in other places?
I don't understand the
Yeah, we
question.
don't understand the question, but what does that have to do with sewage?
Well, because if you want, the reason why you prioritize parks and those cover jobs over.
Over other departments like.
We don't have a
They don't
sewage
have
department.
sewage, yeah. It's,
That's Capital Region Water. Yeah.
It's outsourced to another entity, so. That's
It was actually police that we used because we had a relatively high number of vacancies in police during that first 6 months of the year. So the police chief felt that if we have children that are being exercised to, conduct and supervise other children, and there's, everyone's busy and he felt it's a contribution to the community that if we have people working and being constructive and doing things healthfully, and so actually, that was a leadership, I think, from the police commissioner that he feels that he's willing to give up some of his savings, which he had some significant savings to support the summer help. It's not perfect, but.
Well, I don't answer data stands, so I didn't give this.
Yeah, I think I've done some of the programs in the city, and one of the challenges too is making sure the kids are fed. And one of the frustrations is if the kids are fed and if they're occupied, they're still going home a lot of times to an environment that's unwieldy. And I've done this at Hoover, all manner, Smith Howard Day, Pete Funk, and it's, I think, a perennial issue everybody has in the urban areas. And for the school district, it's even fiercer because you have a loss of, you normally have a loss of educational knowledge, which has been, if you pay attention, exasperated because of COVID. So we've resigned ourselves to the fact that those years are lost. You're not catching up. So one of the things I would point out, it's an opportunity I always felt for an educational, we're going to occupy the kids, feed the kids, there's a lot of facets.
Well, we do have federal funding programs to make sure they're fed. And then a lot of the churches are providing providing backpacks for the weekends and the evenings. Right. So that's kind of nice. And they're going home with a full backpack full of fruits and vegetables. And
we do the same with NutriPacks, but they're also conditioned. And I think there's opportunities. And at the end of the day, the parents and the kids have to be motivated too. You can't, you can't do it for them. What I would point out is the same issues that we've raised with Capital Water are that they inherited a system that's decrepit, that's falling apart. And, I don't know when or if that gets fixed, but as a former business owner in the area, and the sewage and water probably older than your accounting system.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're God City.
Yeah,
I guess we don't need a wireless medical.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. Beverly, do you have anything you'd like to offer for us?
Not tonight.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the department for always attending. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
There's nothing else that anyone has. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I'm assuming everyone's in favor. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
4:39 p.m.